Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del challenges the status quo, questions everything, and empowers you to return to your core beliefs to make your life better. If you're ready to hear the truth and get your roadmap to the lifestyle you really want, the next hour will change your life. And now, your host, self-made millionaire, national award-winning investor of the year, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, Del Walmsley.
Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. I'm your host, Del Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Today is a Tell Del show, so we have a guest with us today, Mr. Chris White, out of Dallas, Texas, or DFW area anyway. And Chris's interesting story, get to share with you today. He's got 9 single-family houses. He's a passive in one apartment complex, and he also is in a commercial shipping building of some kind. We'll get him to explain that to us. But he's done this in a way that has allowed him to go ahead and get out of his corporate job, which is a high-paying corporate job he walked away from just simply because it was too much stress for him. So it's a great story. I want to get it started. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Del. Pleasure to be on with you.
Let's start back at the beginning. How old were you and what were you doing when you first realized you wanted to do some entrepreneurial stuff? Had any stuff in the youth?
Nothing really in my youth. I first really decided that I wanted to be on my own probably when I was about 18 years old. But I had a slightly different path. I was going to do some church missionary service from 19 to 21. Leading up to that, I decided I'd start to figure out what I wanted to do with my life when I got home. And I found these high-powered corporate big wigs that were making really good money and decided I wanted to be on the operations side of things. And that was kind of the path that I had chosen for myself in my early 20s. And
where did you take your mission
college
at?
For that, I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I spent 2 years in that country, and it was a phenomenal experience.
I bet it was. I bet that did open up your mind to things at all?
Opened up my mind, absolutely. And I learned what it meant to be poor. Definitely saw the other side of the coin. We're very blessed in this country, and other countries have it a little bit different.
So you decided to come back and go to college at that time, right? Right after that?
I did. I came home, did a bachelor's degree at Brigham Young University, and blew through that in about 3 years. Met my wife at that time, and then we picked up and moved to Texas. We decided, this was 2008. Things in the country were pretty robust at that time, and one of the strongholds at that time was the state of Texas. Oil was really hot. So we decided we'd go do something in Texas and picked up and moved to Texas. And then the bottom fell out of everything. And I, at the time, was in oil and gas recruiting. And it didn't bode super well for us. So we took a job in the Dallas area, and I worked for a very large food manufacturer for about 5 years in operations. And moved up quickly through the ranks from an entry-level position, and within a year and a half, I'd moved into management, and then spent another almost 3 years in management of that company before I jumped ship and went to a different snack food company and moved up from middle management up into almost executive management from when I walked away from my job.
So there you are. You've gone all the way. You've made it. You climbed the ladder. You get to the top of the ladder and you look out and go, my ladder's leaning across the wrong building, huh? You just did all that work and looked. I love that story. It's the story about the guy climbs the tree and says, he's the manager. And he climbs up the top of the tree and looks and says, we're going the wrong way. They're trying to build a road through the jungle, but they're going the wrong way. But they're working hard at it, man. They're just working and working and working. But they're going the wrong way. So the ladder story is always a good one. What made you come to that realization, Chris, that the job wasn't where you needed to be for the rest of your life?
I was tired of trading time for money, and nothing is ever good enough in corporate America. You can be the absolute best performing associate, and you're as good as you are that one day, because the next day you have to get up and go back to work and prove yourself again. And I decided at that point it wasn't for me, and I was tired of making millions and millions of dollars for these large corporations and seeing a pittance of it, if even a bonus.
Man, I had the same feeling. You know, when you're in sales, when we were in health club sales, what would happen is that anytime we'd break a record, they'd change our quota. Anytime we beating everybody else really bad, they'd take my staff and give it to somebody else and tell me to retrain. You know, they just kept raising the bar no matter how well we did. And so there was never any place you could just relax. And I remember getting my first rent check and it coming in the mail and going, I don't have to give this away, because that's that same part you're talking about. You know you're making the millions. You're seeing the financials, and they're giving you a pittance, right? So I totally get that. I think a lot of people out there relate to that fact. So let's talk then. Let's move a little different direction, and we'll come back to that. Let's go to, how did you first decide to look into real estate? Because I know you looked into real estate early on, right?
I did. When I was in just starting my college at 21, 22, my dad said, hey, you know, if you really want to be rich, go read The Millionaire Next Door. So I did, and ate it up. And I happened to be working security. Don't laugh at this, but I was working security at a library on campus. We did have security in the library on campus, and I worked there. So I had complete access to every single book, and I worked part-time, so it was maybe 20 hours a week. But while I was working security at the library, I had a lot of downtime because nothing ever happened. And I would read books, and I found these financial books to be very inspiring. You know, I looked at stocks, and then I focused in on real estate and really wanted to make that a go. My only problem was that everybody was talking about doing these absolutely stupid or crazy things about wraparounds or no money down, and it just didn't seem right to me. And then the other crowd that was there was saying you needed to have a conventional method on it, and you had to have large amounts of capital and equities, and I didn't have access to that either. You know, I was a poor college kid. I was working 3 part-time jobs just trying to put myself through college. So I wasn't sure where to go, and it took a long time until I found a program that would actually take me by the hand and show me how to do it.
So how did you find us?
I was home on jury duty, and I was listening to the radio driving around with my wife, and I heard a radio show and thought, wow, that's really cool, and found out that you were here in Irving. I live just a little bit south of Irving, and decided that I would check it out. So I went to one of the free workshops, and it wasn't more than 2 or 3 weeks later that my wife gave birth to our 3rd child. And then just a few weeks later, we got the surprise of our lives, and she was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. And I knew immediately in that moment that I had to change my financial destiny, and I had to, or truly wanted to, be able to provide for my family in a completely different way than what I was doing at that time.
Well, that's quite a story, man. I didn't hear that part of the story. So how did they not catch the cancer when she was pregnant? She had to go to the hospital for pregnancy, right?
They did. It ended up being thyroid cancer, and my wife has had problems with her tonsils off and on. She had tonsil stones. She hated it. So she went to an ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor, and said, hey, can you take these out? And he said, well, yeah, I can, but let's not look at your tonsils. You've got something in your neck. Let's go have it biopsied. So she went and had it biopsied, and we got that phone call where they say, hey, you know, we're not going to talk about the results, and a holiday weekend. And we said, no, you're going to tell us right now. And that's when he said, you have cancer in stage XYZ. So
wow.
That was a very humbling phone call. Knowing your story a little bit, you know how that is. But it's one of those things you just have to work through.
And what was there? Well, we got to go to break here in about 30 seconds, so I'll leave that question to later. Right here today on Tell Del, we have Chris Wyatt from Dallas, Texas, sharing his story about his 9 houses and 2 commercial deals that he has. When we come back, we're going to go into it further. We'll be right back with Chris Wyatt and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
You're listening to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del will be right back with more life-changing principles in just a few minutes. Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del is Chris Wyatt. And as we went to break, Chris was explaining that when he first found lifestyles, he had tumultuous experience. New child, found out the wife was diagnosed with cancer. Obviously, you didn't get started right then, Chris. I'm assuming you were really busy with what was going on in your life.
You know, we did actually start very quickly. We jumped into the training program. I asked him if this was really legit. And he came back and said, tell you what, we'll give you 2 years for the same fee in the FFP program, the Financial Freedom Program that you offer as your, for the incoming newbies. And we did it. We jumped right in. It doesn't mean that we made acquisitions right away, but we did start our education right then.
So I guess if your life was anything like many others I've met going through the cancer thing, it sometimes takes people to a place where they start to think about the future and realize they better live life right now. Did you have any of that going on? Yes, absolutely. And I knew that I didn't want to be having to ask for permission to do things as a grown adult. And, I wanted to spend more time with my family. Add insult to injury, we found out just maybe 2 months after my wife had surgery to remove her thyroid that our second child had a genetic deletion, and he would probably never leave home. And that was one of those things that didn't manifest until he was 3, 4, 5 years old. At that point, we decided that we were going to have to not only take care of our family and make decisions so that we could live the way we wanted to live at a young age, but we'd also have to leave a substantial amount so that he could be taken care of throughout his entire life. So real estate has given us troves of treasures and have given us that lifestyle that we've definitely looked for. It's a deeper story than I knew you had, man. I'm sorry that you went through all that. I'm glad to see you got out of it and fixed it. That's the good part about it. If there's any upside to it, is that you now live a life where you can spend your time with your family. Let's talk about how you got started. When did you decide to kick in and buy your first property?
After 2 years of being the FFP membership, I was terrified of pulling the trigger. So I talked to my wife, and we went into the office and talked to Al. I don't know if Al still listens, but thank you for changing my life, my friend. And he said, you know what, if you join this membership, we will feed you property. And we upgraded to the Challenge membership. And my wife said, okay, we've paid the fee, and they're going to feed you properties. You've got 30 days to pull the trigger on your first one. And I said, okay. So I contacted the realtors through the Ready to Buy program and let them know that I wanted a rent-ready property, and I didn't want a pool on it because everything said don't have a pool. And we ended up buying a property 27 days later, and we put in 22 piers, filled in a pool, had to replace some of the plumbing because it didn't come up when the piers raised the house. We had a bad appraisal on it, so the refi was a little bit difficult. But that has been a phenomenal property. We still own it today. I leased it over New Year's. Everyone says that's the worst time to do it, but I leased it in less than 3 days over the New Year's holiday. We have the same tenant. She's never been late. We took a slight risk on her. She had just gone through a divorce. Her credit was in the dumps. But I told her I need a double deposit. She showed up with her mom. They had all the money. And she's been there ever since, takes wonderful care of the property. And we had huge appreciation on that property because we bought it in late 2014. It's been almost 4 years, and it's about time that we turned that. We're sitting on over $90,000 in equity. I didn't realize that until I was preparing for the show.
All right. What was property number 2?
Property 2, we had some friends that lived right down the street from us. They live in an Old Town area, which is going through a revitalization project right now. And this was February of 2015, and they decided that he wasn't going to work for his parents anymore. He was going to go and get a nursing degree, and they had to move very quickly to Arkansas. So they approached us and said, hey, we know you're doing some stuff with real estate. Would you like to pick up our house? It needs some work. And we came to an agreement. We didn't use realtors on it, so the out-of-pocket was much less than we anticipated. And we bought it from them. We broke pretty much every rule in the back of the book. You know, when you take Dell's courses, he says, don't listen to Dell. And we decided that we would do the rehab ourselves. And we tried doing that with kids that were, at that time, 7, 5, 2, and a newborn. And they would come over with us, and we'd try to have them watch movies while we painted. And that was a terrible ordeal. And eventually hired someone to finish it out. But that property, again, has been phenomenal for us. It cash flows over 35%. We're looking at $500, $600, $700 a month, depending on any kind of minor repairs. And the appreciation on it, we're sitting on that one over $100,000 in equity.
2 good deals. First 2 led to some great profits, and I guess a little bit of learning in the learning curve also, huh?
Yes, definitely a learning curve. You know, we decided that, hey, we could do it. We could save a little bit of money, but, you know, somebody else could have done it twice as fast, 3 times as fast. And we could have started making money through cash flow, 2 or 3 months ago.
So your first house you did in 2014. Your second house was in 2015. You did another one in 2015, though, didn't you? The third house?
We did. Yeah, we picked up another home. Everything except for that second home we picked up through one realtor on your team. She was phenomenal for us and would just toss us properties, and we'd say yes or no almost immediately. This one was a 1997 build, so it was much newer than the 1970s that we had been rehabbing. It was through a wholesaler, but he had contacted one of your agents, and we went over there with the kid and said, yeah, we'll take it. And she came back to us and said, the only reason you're getting this property is because of your kid. So from that point forward, we started taking our kids to every single property because they would, they would hug the wholesaler or they would hug the other realtor, and they'd say, Dad, are we going to buy this? Dad, are we going to buy this? Hey, we can put the fridge here and we can put the dishwasher here, even though it already had appliances. But, just their innocence and their emotion would just completely win over anybody that was trying to sell the property.
Now, Chris, you read all those crazy books when you were a kid, and you said they were crazy, and now you're telling me that you've got a technique called taking the kid to the buy?
Absolutely. Yeah, we would take the kids to the buy, and it worked every single time.
Oh, man.
We've made this generational now because my oldest, he's 10 now. And when you ask him what he wants to do with his life, he says, I want to be a professional baseball player and I want to be a real estate investment. So
we've got a break on that one. That's a good one. That's a good one. We'll stake that one for our break. We're going to take a short break. Be right back with Chris Wyatt and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
You're listening to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del will be right back with more life-changing principles in just a few minutes. Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del is Chris Wyatt out of Dallas, Texas area. And Chris is talking about with us today, sharing with us about his 9 properties, 9 single-family zones, passive in one apartment complex, and then he's in another commercial building with some other people also. So I think we left off at property number 4, Chris. Are we ready to talk about number 5 now?
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely talk about number 5. We moved our investing down to Houston. Dallas is so hot and bubbling right now that we couldn't pick anything else up for the numbers that we had in our requirements. So we moved down and started picking up properties in Conroe, mainly because it's only 3 hours away, not 4.5 hours away for us if we have to go down and see the property. So we picked up a property in July, and that was after meeting with my mentor. He said, if you're going to be gainfully employed and you've got capital, don't shy away from continuing to pick up a large equity chunk in single-family homes. So we decided to do that. So we picked up a property in July, right at the beginning of July. Started the rehab. We're about 2/3 through the rehab, and that's when Harvey hit. We thought we were safe, and then they opened the floodgates, and our home flooded. So we got to rehab that property twice. But through the course of that period, we also saw an enormous appreciation in the neighborhood. We were expecting an ARV of just shy of $200,000, and it came back at $215,000. So we picked up an extra equity chunk in that one, and it's been leased out through your realty team. And then we picked up very quickly in that same neighborhood 2 more. And then right at the end of the year, we picked up 2 more properties that were also flooded properties. So we picked up 5 properties in Houston while living in Dallas. All through the Lifestyles Realty team and just through networking with some very strong agents that you have.
You were able to take advantage of the flooding. I mean, you got hit by it yourself, but then after that, you were buying flooded properties, right? Is that what you were saying?
That's absolutely true.
What kind of equity were you able to buy on those properties? How much captured equity did you get when you're buying those properties that were flooded? On
those 5 properties alone, we're sitting on almost $500,000 in equity.
Wow.
We bought them
profitable year.
for 30 and 40 cents on the dollar. On 4 of them, we've used the same contractor. They've been very good to work with, and they have really. Just having the right team in place has been what's made this a go for us.
Did you get that contractor out of our vendor program?
We did not expect that to happen. I did.
That's great.
When we bought our first one down there, the realtor had 2 bids on file from vendors from Lifestyles, and we went with one of them. And then since the other 4 came up so quickly, we just sent that same individual and his team out, and they were able to pick them up, and they've done a great job with them. We have to continue to push them along, and it's a little bit more difficult being in Dallas. We can't just drive over and see it. But pictures and videos and always talking 2 or 3 times a week and making sure they're moving along, and they've been good to us. They've been very good to us.
So you bought these in 2017, the flood properties?
We did. Yep, we closed them all in 2017. In fact, one of them was closed on the 31st of December.
That's really interesting because you're looking at a situation where you're out of town, you're fighting a flood, you're buying 4 or 5 all at one time, doing the rehab from out of town. These are all things that you would think if any other person out there were listening to this show, they'd be going, oh my God, it sounds terrible. Yet you got through it all and made $500,000 in a year. That is an incredible story. What is your confidence like after getting through all of that?
You have to set really high goals, and we set really high goals. So my confidence level has gone up substantially. And I know what I can handle and what I can't handle. It's been very stressful, I won't lie. It's been a stressful situation. And we felt very extended. But that's when you grow, when you actually push yourself to do more than what you think you're capable of. We've had great members on our team. And making sure, I've had realtors that sold me the property from your team that have dropped in and just sent me a bunch of pictures and said, hey, just wanted to let you know what's going on at your property. And I appreciate that very much. One of them was in Baytown, and I'm in Dallas, so it would take me a long time to get down there just to see it. And,
no doubt. It's a long time for me to get to Baytown. All right, so let's talk about, when did the mind frame decide that you wanted, when did you change your mind frame enough to decide you wanted to go into a multifamily deal?
So in 2016, we decided that, it was after our fourth single-family acquisition, we decided, this is a lot of work. Doing a refi on home number 5, we're going to have to get 4 mortgage statements, and we're going to have to send 4 documents of this, and they're going to want to see every single dime that we've made and where it goes to and where we eat lunch out. And decided, let's just take the dive and pay the fee now and go into multifamily. And we did. We upgraded, and I didn't realize that it was going to be 100% networking and trying to find people that were doing the deals. I thought they'd be fed to me just like the challenge membership, and it wasn't like that, and that's fine. I've had to push myself again to go out and network. And the best networking event, and if I can put a plug in for it, this is just for me, for all the listeners, the Expo is the absolute best place to network. And that's where we found our first multifamily deal, was through networking at the Expo. And before that, it had been crickets on deals that we could jump into. And since then, we're getting 2 or 3 a month. And, if you have concerns about there's not going to be enough deals for me, that was one of my concerns when I jumped into real estate. And, guys, there's so much out there. Deal flow is not a problem. But we picked one. We jumped into it. It was, at that point, early 2017, most of everyone's saying the value plays have dried up. Well, we got into a full-on value play, and it's moving right along. The cash flow's there, the equity captured. We should make almost 200% on our money within the first year, and that's just from getting into the right deals.
It's interesting the way you tell the story, Chris. If you listen to this thing, you go back and listen to this as a podcast and listen to the way you're telling the story. Everything you've told me you've done so far, and I'm laughing at this. This is just funny. You said, I was told it can't be done, or you said it shouldn't be real, and yet you went ahead and did it anyway. Everything you've done, you started out with the assumption it couldn't be done or it wasn't real. So I want you to go back and listen to that podcast. It's an interesting storytelling technique. So when you did the multifamily, were you more interested in the type of deal or the lead investor? Which one did you put more weight on when you picked the deal you were going to do?
Honestly, it was just getting into a deal. Once we went to the Expo, my wife said to me, okay, you've got 90 days to get in a deal. My wife is my best friend, and she will push me and push me and push me and make sure that things get done. And I love her for that. And she put that stipulation, okay, we've been to the Expo. We spent the whole day there. We spent 2 nights there. And go make it happen. So as soon as that first one came up, I talked back and forth with the leads on it. And we felt comfortable with them and decided that we were gonna jump in. So we did. And we have never looked back since, and it's been a great experience.
That's an excellent referral for the Expo, because it's true. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. There's 150 leads there, handing out their cards, talking to people. It's unbelievable. When we come back, Chris, we're going to talk about your future and what you're looking to do next. I know that you've gone ahead and passed the lead investor program, so you're all ready to take off. So we're going to have you go into that and explain that.
It's not just the money, it's the lifestyle. Here's Del Walmsley.
The basic concept is that most Americans live a life of quiet desperation in a dependent lifestyle, dependent on first your parents, then dependent on your teachers, then dependent on your boss, employees, and then ultimately dependent on the government for your retirement package, your Social Security, and so forth. And that you never really break out of that dependency. You never really have control of your life. And so you end up living your entire life really is like a gerbil on a wheel. Life of quiet desperation. You really never get to where you want to be. First choice is to try to mature, to grow up, and to get away from being dependent is to become independent, in which case you have control of your own financial situation, both your cash flow and your asset base, and you need to do that. Now, the problem with most people is they can't do something like that in large chunks because they don't have enough money. So you start out like I did. You buy one rent house. This is the key. You got to start. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You've got to go buy one rent house. Now you're $500 a month freer than you were before you had that rent house. by 2. Now you're $1,000 a month, freer than what you were. You do it that way until you get up to where you have about $10,000 in income, and then you can quit your job, and then you're totally free. And then you can go out there and buy apartment complexes because you have the time to operate them at that point. If you've got more money when you're starting, then you can just go start with an apartment complex and buy in. And if you don't know how to operate it, take the classes, you learn how to do it, but then you also hire someone else to do it for you that already has the skill set, and you can move quicker than what you could if you don't have very much money. But you've got to start somewhere. That's the bottom line. If you don't ever start, you'll never get there. It's not where you start, it's where you end up that counts.
We'll be right back with Chris Wyatt and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
You're listening to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Del will be right back with more life-changing principles in just a few minutes. Welcome back. Now here's some more unconventional wisdom to set you free from the man on a mission to retire America, one person at a time, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del is Chris Wyatt. Chris has 9 single-family houses, 1 apartment complex, and 1 commercial property. Chris, how'd you get in the commercial property? How'd that come up in your life?
I had a good friend that is a senior vice president of commercial at a large firm in Dallas, and he's very well connected. And a friend of a friend of a friend's dad passed away, and they were divesting some of their assets, and he picked this one up for a song and a dance. And I had just contacted him out of the blue and said, hey, is it time to buy anything? Because over the last 2 years, I just kept picking at him, and he actually came back and said, well, yes, it is. And he sent me the deal on it, all the numbers, and it was a phenomenal deal. The family was just trying to break even or get rid of it. And we picked it up. There's 3 of us in the group. It's 20,000 square feet of manufacturing and distribution, 1 long-term tenant. And it's in a great part of an industrial area of town, and it cash flows 20%. So, I mean, it's really hard to find that in this market, and this was just a couple months ago. This is back in September. Again, it goes back to networking. You have to get out. You have to talk to people, and if you want to make it happen, you can.
What's next for Chris and the Wyatt family, huh?
So we are looking to divest 2 or 3 of our properties so that we can become lead investors. We would love to take on that burden, if you will, and help other people reach the same goals we've had. A couple of the properties that we're going to get rid of or sell off, 2 of them are just too big for us. They're a little bit harder to lease out, and one of them has a pool, which we don't really like. We only picked that one up because it was so inexpensive at the time.
So, what's changed in your life? How has this affected your life? You talked about wanting to get out of where you're at, do something different. How's it worked out?
Life is much less stressful now. I don't have to get up and go to the office. I get up and I can make my kids breakfast, or I eat lunch with my wife every day, which I absolutely love. Having lunch with friends is a little difficult because most of them have a corporate job, and I'm ready to sit there and chat for 2 or 3 hours, and they've got 40 minutes. I don't sit in traffic anymore. I used to have an hour commute each way. And the last time I sat in traffic was in early February. I got called to jury duty again. I didn't care about going to jury duty, but the traffic was horrendous. I don't know how I did that for 10 years. I don't know how people do it today. So
I don't either. That's one of my
life back.
favorite things.
Yeah. I can go shopping at Walmart or Target, and there's nobody there. So I can do my shopping in 20 or 30 minutes. Whereas if you do it on Saturday, you're standing in long lines, and it's horrible. So being able to do things now that I couldn't do before on a timetable that I have, is phenomenal. And, you know, I think I put in my little profile that I can do things on Saturdays now that I used to see as a burden. You know, we went and sold camp cards with my boys so they can go to scout camp. And I used to think that was horrible because it would give up, you know, a big chunk of my Saturday. Now I don't care. I have a lot of me time during the week. So I can go and volunteer, or I can go and do what I want. And then on Saturday when my kids are here full time, it's family time. And it's great. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So let's ask, what do your family think about this? You know, your parents, brothers and sisters, or even close friends. Did they think you're a little crazy giving up that big job just to do real estate?
They have all been 100% supportive. And I think in some ways they might be a little bit jealous because I have so much free time with my family. And, you know, I've lost 20 pounds. I don't have that stress anymore. It's been great. Wow. I can work out during the day. But my family, my close friends, I think my close friends are jealous. You know, they want to emulate what I've done. My parents have been 100% supportive. I have two sisters, and they've been great. My older sister, her husband also invests in multifamily in the Northwest. So, you know, they've also been successful at it. So they see and they know, and we just build each other up so that we can make this, you know, it's not just our generation. We're looking at our kids and leaving a legacy.
The information and opinions you hear on the Del Walmsley radio show are those of the host, Del Walmsley, his guests, and his callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this station, its affiliates, its management, or advertisers. The Del Walmsley show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Del Walmsley show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.